Right, so today's planting is another citrus. Unlike some of the more complicated hybrids I planted yesterday, this is a fairly straightforward one. So this is a hybrid between a pomelo and a mandarin with, as far as I know, no extra steps, although it is a cultivar thereof. So this is a cultivar of Citrus sinensis, which is the orange. So this is a Caracara, which is a type of navel orange with a red flesh and a very low acidity and quite a unique flavour as a result. It's supposed to taste not dissimilar to the blood orange, which also has a red flesh, but unlike the blood orange, it is not dependent on cold to develop that distinct flavour and distinct colouring. So hopefully it will do well in my usual Citrus sinensis type planting situation, which is what I usually do. Is I try and get things so they are not in direct sun at all during winter, and so they don't get afternoon sun at all. So this means that I'm going to be tucking it a little bit into some trees due north of it. Those can be pruned. It's all guavas and Brachystegia that have self-seeded in this area, which can be pruned down quite a lot, and it's also got quite a hefty area because the sycamore thicket is just to the west of it, so that will be protecting it from the afternoon sun more or less throughout the year. We are going to be giving it some companion plants just to mark it out and make sure it is extra protected. So we're going to be giving it the Dracaena fragrans as a shelter from the summer sun. So from this time of year when we don't have clouds to shade it, like today, this will be there to protect it. Due west of it, we're going to be planting a large piece of the Aloe CF neriensis, which will protect it from any afternoon sun that does slip through, or at least protect its trunk, which is the most sun-sensitive part on most citrus. Their bark really doesn't like direct sun, especially in the afternoon. And then we're going to be putting in a few pieces of Kalanchoe fetching just to protect the base. And that's everything for the official planting, but we're going to be planting two that I got free from the nursery because they were not looking great. And there's a chance they might come back, but there's a good chance they won't, which is what happened with the Erythrona actually. So first off, I'm going to be planting a little cinnamon, which is really not happy with itself, and isn't really showing any signs of picking up, and its roots also aren't overly healthy, so I'm not convinced this will come back. But if it does, it'll want a very shady area, and it can be kept quite small. This is an area where I recently cut back one of the pieces of ginger bush, and so that will fill back out, and that will provide shade again. And this is an area where I have coffee and lychees, which also do tend to like quite a lot of shade. They're not as demanding as cinnamon on that, but they do like it as well. And I'm going to be giving it a little bit of protection because the chickens have already been paying attention to it here. So I'm going to be putting in some pieces of the Euphorbia tithymaloides and also the Costus aphus, the spiral ginger, just to make sure it has a sort of permanent dense thicket around it to keep the chickens from having too much access to it and give it the best shot possible. The leaf that is going up is not of this one, that is of one that is established and growing quite well, so it actually has leaves. Finally, I'm going to be putting in a rose apple, which was also really sorry for itself. It is significantly less sorry for itself. It actually has some development coming already, so I am hopeful this will perk back up. I'm actually sort of trying to correct my original error with these, because the very first one I planted this year was actually one that had sprung up itself under one of our mango trees in an area that wasn't convenient for it to be, but then I put it in somewhere that was significantly brighter and sunnier, and I think that was the big mistake because it really just didn't take. And I've had a couple of others that I've planted also object the amount of sun they're in. So this is going right close to a different mango tree where it's much more convenient. This is in my sort of thicket area, and there's pathways on either side of it, which will mean it gets some light at all times, but it's got several layers of vegetation up above it, which do mean that the light it gets is filtered, and hopefully that will mean this one is significantly less inclined to be burnt to death by the sun than previous. It's going to be getting a piece of the Dracaena reflexa and a couple of pieces of the Peperomia obtusifolia just to protect it, again from the chickens and again from any light that does hit it while it's still small, while it's still recovering, while it's still tender. So that should be everything for tonight. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you have enjoyed it, and if you haven't enjoyed it, thank you for watching anyway. Please tune in again tomorrow because we'll be planting something different. I don't really know what yet, but we'll see.